Good evening, everyone. There is a quiet power in a woman who knows she is enough. It's not the kind of power that shouts or demands attention. It's the steady, unshakable confidence of someone who understands her worth is not up for negotiation. Understanding self-worth is the foundation of a fulfilled and authentic life. It's the realization that your value is not something you need to earn or prove, it simply exists. It's not tied to your achievements, your relationships, your appearance, or your ability to meet the expectations of others. It's intrinsic, unchangeable, and always present, even when life feels messy or uncertain. But understanding self-worth isn't always easy. From an early age, we're often taught to look outside ourselves for validation. Gold stars for good behavior, compliments for how we look, applause for what we achieve. These moments, though well-meaning, can plant the seed of a dangerous belief that our value depends on how others perceive us. Over time, we start to measure ourselves against standards we didn't set and question our worth when we fall short. To truly understand your self-worth, you must unlearn these patterns and turn inward. It requires courage to step back and ask yourself, who am I when the awards are taken away? Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I without the roles I play or the titles I hold? The answers to these questions can be unsettling at first, but they are the gateway to self-acceptance. Self-worth is about knowing that you are enough, not because of what you do, but simply because you are. It's about recognizing that your existence alone is significant, and your voice, your presence, and your perspective matter. It's about believing that you deserve love, respect, and dignity, no matter your past mistakes or current circumstances. This understanding also requires you to let go of the need for external validation. It's human to want to be liked and appreciated, but when your sense of worth is tied to others' opinions, you give away your power. People's perceptions of you are shaped by their own experiences, biases, and expectations. They are not a reflection of your true value. The freedom comes when you stop asking, am I good enough for them? And start affirming, I am good enough for me. Understanding self-worth is not a destination, but a practice. It's a daily decision to treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would offer a dear friend. It's looking in the mirror and acknowledging both your strengths and your flaws without judgment. It's celebrating your wins and forgiving your missteps, knowing they are all part of your story. When you embrace your self-worth, you stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You stop settling for less than you deserve because you finally understand that you are worthy of more. You begin to walk through life with a quiet confidence, not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you've stopped competing altogether. This is the power of self-worth that anchors you. It reminds you that no matter what the world throws your way, you are enough, always have been, and always will be. The power of vulnerability lies in its paradox. To be vulnerable is to open yourself to uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. It's stepping into the unknown without guarantees, willingly showing parts of yourself that you might usually hide: your fears, your doubts, your hopes, and your flaws. Vulnerability feels like weakness, but in truth, it is one of the greatest acts of courage. There's a reason why vulnerability is so difficult. From a young age, many of us are taught that strength means holding it together, never showing weakness, and keeping emotions in check. We internalize the idea that to admit we're struggling or that we don't have all the answers is to invite judgment or rejection. But this belief is a trap. The more we armor up to protect ourselves, the more disconnected we become from others, from opportunities, and ultimately from ourselves. True vulnerability is not about oversharing or exposing yourself recklessly. It's about showing up fully as you are, even when it's uncomfortable or uncertain. It's about being honest, not just with others, but with yourself. It's admitting when you need help, expressing how you feel, and allowing yourself to be seen for who you truly are, without pretending to be more or less than that. When you lean into vulnerability, you give yourself permission to be human. You acknowledge that it's okay to have doubts, to stumble, and to not have it all figured out. This acknowledgement doesn't diminish you, it liberates you. It allows you to release the exhausting pursuit of perfection and embrace the beauty of your imperfections. Vulnerability is also the key to meaningful connection. Relationships that are built on facades or walls may appear strong, but they lack depth. True connection requires trust, and trust is built when we let others see us fully, not just the polished, curated version of ourselves, but the messy, unfiltered truth. When you share your struggles, your fears, or your dreams, you invite others to do the same. In this mutual exchange, relationships deepen and empathy grows. Yet vulnerability isn't without risk. To show your true self is to risk rejection, disappointment, or even failure. But the alternative, living a life closed off and guarded, is far costlier. Without vulnerability, there is no growth. There are no breakthroughs or moments of profound joy. Vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, and love. It's where all the magic happens. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you'll always be met with kindness or understanding. Not everyone will handle your openness with care, and that's a risk you take. But here's the truth: vulnerability is not about their response, it's about your courage. It's about knowing that your worth is not diminished by how others react to your openness. The power of vulnerability is transformative. It allows you to live authentically, free from the fear of being found out or not enough. It teaches you that strength isn't about never falling, it's about rising again with your heart still open. It reminds you that life is richer, more meaningful, and infinitely more rewarding when you choose to show up fully, imperfections and all. In the end, vulnerability is not weakness, it's the truest form of strength. It's a declaration that you are brave enough to risk being seen and tender enough to embrace the messiness of being human. Letting go of perfectionism is one of the most liberating acts of self-care and self-compassion. Perfectionism often masquerades as a pursuit of excellence, but in reality, it's a heavy burden fueled by fear and self-doubt. It whispers the lie that if you can just get everything right, if you look perfect, perform perfectly, and avoid mistakes, then you'll finally be worthy of love, acceptance, and success. But the truth is, perfectionism doesn't lead to fulfillment, it leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and a constant sense of never being enough. At its core, perfectionism is rooted in fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, or fear of not measuring up. It's the belief that mistakes are evidence of inadequacy rather than opportunities for growth. This mindset creates a relentless cycle of striving, where no achievement is ever quite good enough and no amount of effort ever feels complete. Even when you succeed, the joy is fleeting because perfectionism quickly shifts the goalpost, leaving you chasing an ever-elusive ideal. Letting go of perfectionism doesn't mean abandoning high standards or settling for mediocrity. It's about understanding the difference between healthy striving and self-destructive pressure. Healthy striving is driven by a desire to grow, learn, and contribute, whereas perfectionism is driven by a fear of not being enough. The key is to embrace progress over perfection and to value the process as much as the outcome. One of the hardest truths to accept is that perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. No one, no matter how polished their life may appear from the outside, is without flaws, struggles, or imperfections. By clinging to the myth of perfection, you set yourself up for inevitable disappointment and rob yourself of the chance to experience the messy, beautiful reality of life. Letting go of perfectionism requires courage, the courage to be vulnerable, to take risks, and to make mistakes. It means allowing yourself to try new things, even if you might fail. It means releasing the need for everyone to approve of you and trusting that you are still worthy even when you fall short. It's about giving yourself permission to rest, to say no, and to prioritize your well-being over meeting unrealistic expectations. One of the most profound shifts that happens when you let go of perfectionism is that you start to see yourself and others through a lens of compassion rather than criticism. You recognize that being human means being imperfect. Mistakes and failures are not reflections of your worth, but necessary steps in the journey of growth. When you embrace imperfection, you also create space for joy, creativity, and connection. Perfectionism often isolates us because it forces us to put up a facade, pretending we have it all together. But when you let it go, you open the door to authenticity. You allow others to see the real you, and in doing so, you invite them to show up authentically as well. This is where true connection and intimacy thrive, not in perfection, but in shared humanity. Letting go of perfectionism is not a one-time decision, it's a practice. It's choosing day by day to be kinder to yourself. It's reminding yourself that done is better than perfect, that progress is worth celebrating, and that your worth is not tied to what you achieve. It's learning to embrace the beauty of imperfection, to laugh at your missteps, and to find joy in the process rather than fixating on the outcome. When you release the grip of perfectionism, you begin to live more fully and freely. You start to see that life isn't about being flawless, it's about being present, engaged, and courageous enough to show up as you are. And in that space of imperfection, you discover a deep sense of peace, fulfillment, and self-acceptance. Defining your own identity is one of the most profound and empowering journeys you can undertake. It's the process of stepping away from societal expectations, external labels, and others' opinions to discover and embrace who you truly are at your core. It's about living authentically, guided by your values, passions, and truth, rather than conforming to a version of yourself that someone else has scripted. From the moment we're born, the world begins to shape us with messages about who we should be. Families, cultures, schools, and social norms set parameters, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unconsciously, about what is acceptable, desirable, or worthy. These influences can be helpful, but they can also limit us, pressuring us to fit into roles that don't reflect our authentic selves. Defining your own identity means peeling back those layers of expectation and asking yourself, what do I believe in? What matters to me? Who am I when I'm not trying to please others? These questions can be both liberating and daunting because they require honesty, self-awareness, and the courage to challenge the status quo. One of the greatest barriers to defining your own identity is the fear of judgment. We worry about what people will think if we step outside the roles they've come to expect from us. But living to meet others' expectations is a path to dissatisfaction and disconnection. When you define your identity based on external approval, you sacrifice your authenticity, and authenticity is the foundation of true fulfillment. This journey is not about rejecting everything you've been taught or turning away from your relationships and communities. It's about sifting through the influences in your life and deciding what aligns with your true self. Some beliefs and values will resonate deeply, while others may feel imposed or outdated. By taking ownership of what you carry forward, you begin to build a life that feels uniquely your own. Defining your identity also means embracing your multifaceted nature. You are not one thing, you are many things. You might be a parent, a professional, a creative, a friend, a partner, and an individual with dreams and desires that don't fit neatly into any category. Recognizing and honoring all the aspects of yourself allows you to live fully and authentically. This process often involves releasing labels that no longer serve you. Perhaps you've been defined by a job title, a relationship status, or a role that has become confining. Letting go of these labels can feel uncomfortable because they've likely been a part of your identity for so long. But when you release them, you make space for growth and evolution. Defining your identity also means embracing change. Who you are today may not be who you'll be tomorrow, and that's okay. Growth is a sign of life. Clinging to an outdated version of yourself out of fear or loyalty only stifles your potential. Giving yourself permission to evolve is one of the greatest acts of self-love. Another crucial part of this journey is learning to listen to your inner voice. In a world full of noise, it's easy to lose touch with your own instincts and desires. Taking the time to reflect, to sit in silence, or to explore your passions can help you reconnect with who you are. Your inner voice is your compass. It will guide you toward what feels authentic and meaningful. Defining your own identity is not about achieving a final, fixed version of yourself. It's about living in alignment with your truth, even as that truth shifts and grows. It's about being unapologetically yourself, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. And it's about recognizing that your worth is not determined by how well you fit into someone else's expectations, but by your ability to stand confidently in your own skin. When you define your own identity, you reclaim your power. You stop living a life dictated by others and start living a life that feels like your own. You become a beacon of authenticity, inspiring others to do the same. And most importantly, you begin to experience the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing that you are living as the person you were always meant to be. Owning your story is one of the most transformative steps you can take towards self-acceptance and personal freedom. It means embracing the entirety of your journey, the triumphs, the struggles, the mistakes, and the lessons with courage and honesty. It's not about rewriting the past or erasing the pain, but rather standing in the truth of your experiences and claiming them as part of who you are. Every story has its complexities, its moments of light and darkness. Often we're tempted to hide the parts we're ashamed of or wish had gone differently. Maybe it's a failure that stings, a relationship that fell apart, or a dream that didn't come to fruition. But the truth is, these moments are not blemishes, they are the threads that weave the fabric of your life. To deny them is to deny a part of yourself. Owning your story means accepting that these experiences, while difficult, have shaped you into who you are today. It's easy to fall into the trap of letting others dictate the narrative of your life. People may judge, label, or misunderstand you, projecting their own interpretations onto your story. But owning your story is about reclaiming that power. It's deciding that no one else gets to define who you are or what your experiences mean. Only you can determine the lessons you've learned and the way those lessons will guide you forward. When you own your story, you also take responsibility for it, not in a way that burdens you with guilt or blame, but in a way that empowers you to grow and evolve. It's about recognizing where you've made mistakes, offering yourself grace, and choosing to move forward with intention. Taking ownership doesn't mean everything in your story was your fault, but it does mean acknowledging your role in how you respond and what you create next. Owning your story requires vulnerability. It's not always easy to face the parts of your life that hurt or make you feel exposed. But vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, it's a demonstration of strength. When you have the courage to confront your story head-on, you begin to heal the parts of yourself that you've kept hidden. You stop running from the past and start integrating it into your present. This act of ownership also allows you to connect more deeply with others. Sharing your story, especially the parts that are raw and real, creates space for empathy and understanding. When you are honest about your experiences, you invite others to be honest about theirs. This mutual exchange builds trust and reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Owning your story doesn't mean you have to broadcast every detail to the world. It's not about oversharing or seeking validation. It's about being at peace with your truth, whether you choose to share it with one person, a small circle, or simply hold it for yourself. The power lies in knowing that you are no longer hiding from it. There's also freedom in recognizing that your story is still being written. Owning your past doesn't mean being defined by it. It means using it as a foundation to build something new. Your experiences, both the joyous and the painful, are tools you can use to shape the next chapters of your life. When you own your story, you reclaim the pen. You remind yourself that you are the author, not just a character in someone else's narrative. Ultimately, owning your story is an act of self-love. It's saying to yourself, this is who I am, and that's enough. It's refusing to let shame or regret keep you trapped in a version of yourself that no longer serves you. Instead, you honor your journey, celebrate your resilience, and step forward with confidence, knowing that every part of your story has value and meaning. By owning your story, you transform it. What once felt like a weight becomes a source of strength. What once caused you pain becomes a catalyst for growth. And in doing so, you give yourself the gift of freedom, the freedom to be unapologetically, beautifully, and authentically you. Boundaries are a profound act of empowerment. a declaration of self-respect and self-care. They are not walls designed to isolate or push others away. Instead, they are the healthy lines we draw to protect our well-being, values, and priorities. Boundaries are how we communicate what we need, what we will accept, and what we simply cannot allow in our lives. They are essential to creating relationships and environments that nurture rather than drain us. Setting boundaries begins with recognizing your inherent worth. When you understand that you are deserving of respect, time, and space, it becomes easier to see where boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are an extension of this understanding. They are a way of saying, I value myself enough to protect what matters to me. This self-awareness is crucial. Because without it, you risk allowing others to dictate your life, often at the expense of your own needs and desires. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about taking responsibility for yourself. You cannot change how someone behaves, but you can decide how you respond. When you set a boundary, you are not asking for permission. You are making a choice about what you will tolerate and how you will engage. This shift in perspective is empowering because it puts you back in control of your life. For many, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're accustomed to prioritizing others' needs over your own. There may be fear of conflict, guilt, or worry about being perceived as selfish. But establishing boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary. It's a way of ensuring that your energy and resources are directed toward what aligns with your values and supports your growth. Healthy boundaries create clarity in relationships. They let others know where you stand and what you need, which reduces misunderstandings and resentment. Without boundaries, relationships can become imbalanced, with one person consistently overextending while the other takes advantage, intentionally or not. By setting boundaries, you establish mutual respect and create space for healthier, more authentic connections. Boundaries are also a powerful tool for managing your time and energy. In a world that often glorifies busyness and productivity, it's easy to say yes to everything and everyone, leaving yourself depleted. But every yes to something that doesn't serve you is a no to something that does. Setting boundaries helps you prioritize what truly matters and ensures that you have the capacity to show up fully for those commitments. One of the most challenging aspects of boundaries is maintaining them. It's not enough to set a boundary, you must also enforce it. This requires consistency and confidence, especially when others push back or test your limits. It's natural for people to resist change, particularly if they've benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. But standing firm is an act of self-respect. It communicates that your needs are non-negotiable and that you take yourself seriously. It's also important to recognize that boundaries are not static. They may shift and evolve as you grow and as your circumstances change. What you needed in one season of your life may be different from what you need in another. Part of empowering yourself through boundaries is being attuned to these changes and having the flexibility to adapt as necessary. Boundaries do not mean that you shut people out or refuse to compromise. Instead, they allow you to show up in relationships and situations as your best self. They create the conditions for mutual respect and understanding where you can give and receive without feeling taken advantage of. Ultimately, boundaries are an act of love, not just for yourself, but for those around you. When you honor your limits, you model self-respect and teach others to respect you as well. You show them that it's possible to care deeply for others without losing yourself in the process. And in doing so, you create a ripple effect, empowering others to establish their own boundaries and live more authentically. By setting and honoring your boundaries, you reclaim your power. You take ownership of your life and make space for what truly matters. Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to deeper self-awareness, healthier relationships, and a life that aligns with your values. They remind you that protecting your well-being is not only a right but a responsibility, and that through this act of empowerment, you step fully into the person you were meant to be. Living wholeheartedly is about embracing life with a sense of openness, courage, and authenticity. It means showing up fully, even when things feel uncertain or imperfect. It's a commitment to live with your whole heart, to engage deeply with the world, and to find joy and meaning in both the beauty and the messiness of life. To live wholeheartedly, you must first accept yourself as you are. This doesn't mean settling for less or ignoring the need for growth. It means recognizing your inherent worth, flaws and all. It's letting go of the belief that you need to earn your right to belong or to be loved. Wholehearted living begins with the understanding that you are already enough, just as you are, and that nothing external can define your value. At its core, wholeheartedness is about courage. It's the courage to be vulnerable, to take risks, and to face challenges without letting fear dictate your choices. Living wholeheartedly doesn't mean you won't experience fear or doubt. It means you choose to move forward despite them. It's about leaning into life's uncertainties with the belief that even when things don't go as planned, you are resilient enough to handle whatever comes your way. Living wholeheartedly also requires presence. It's about engaging fully in the moment instead of being consumed by regrets from the past or anxieties about the future. When you live wholeheartedly, you cultivate gratitude for what is, rather than constantly chasing what could be. This mindset allows you to savor life's small joys and to find beauty in the everyday moments that might otherwise go unnoticed. One of the key elements of wholehearted living is cultivating meaningful connections. It's about showing up authentically in your relationships, allowing yourself to be seen, and creating space for others to do the same. True connection requires honesty and vulnerability, and living wholeheartedly means valuing those connections over the need to appear perfect or invulnerable. It's about being real, even when it's uncomfortable, and knowing that genuine relationships are built on trust and mutual understanding. Wholehearted living also means embracing imperfection not as a flaw to be fixed, but as a natural and beautiful part of being human. When you release the need for perfection, you free yourself to try, fail, and grow. You stop measuring your worth by your achievements or how well you meet external standards, and you start valuing yourself for who you are. This shift allows you to approach life with curiosity and a willingness to learn, rather than being paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. Purpose and passion are also central to wholehearted living. It's about identifying what lights you up and finding ways to align your life with those values and interests. This doesn't mean every moment will be filled with joy or that you'll always feel inspired, but it does mean living in a way that feels meaningful and authentic to you. When you live with intention, you create a sense of fulfillment that goes deeper than fleeting happiness. Wholehearted living is not about eliminating struggle or pain. It's about facing life's challenges with grace and resilience. It's understanding that joy and sorrow often coexist and that both have a role in shaping who you are. When you live wholeheartedly, you embrace the full spectrum of emotions, knowing that even the difficult moments hold lessons and opportunities for growth. Finally, living wholeheartedly requires self-compassion. It's the practice of being kind to yourself, especially when things don't go as planned. It's recognizing that you are doing the best you can with what you have and extending the same grace to yourself that you would to a friend. Self-compassion allows you to move through life with less judgment and more acceptance, creating a foundation for true inner peace. To live wholeheartedly is to live a life that feels true to you, a life where you are fully present, fully engaged, and fully yourself. It's not about perfection or achieving some ideal. It's about showing up every day with courage, love, and a commitment to being authentic. In doing so, you create a life rich with connection, purpose, and meaning, a life where you can look back and say, I gave it my all, and it was beautiful. The legacy of self-acceptance is one of the most profound and enduring gifts you can give to yourself and to those around you. It is the ongoing practice of embracing yourself fully, your strengths and weaknesses, your triumphs and struggles, your light and shadow. Self-acceptance is not a destination, but a journey, one that unfolds over time and deepens with every act of kindness you extend to yourself. At its heart, self-acceptance is about recognizing your inherent worth independent of your achievements, mistakes, or the opinions of others. It is a radical departure from the belief that you must be perfect or meet certain conditions to be deserving of love and respect. Instead, self-acceptance invites you to honor your humanity, to see yourself as whole, even in your imperfections. This legacy begins with awareness, It requires you to confront the inner critic, that relentless voice that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. The inner critic is often shaped by external influences, societal expectations, past experiences, or the comparisons we make with others. But self-acceptance allows you to challenge those narratives and replace them with ones rooted in compassion and truth. It reminds you that you are not your failures or shortcomings, you are so much more. Practicing self-acceptance doesn't mean ignoring areas where you want to grow or improve. It means approaching those areas with grace rather than judgment. When you accept yourself as you are, you create a safe space for growth. Instead of being driven by shame or fear, you are motivated by love and a genuine desire to evolve. This shift not only fosters healthier growth, but also makes the process far more sustainable and rewarding. The legacy of self-acceptance is also about embracing your uniqueness. In a world that often pressures us to conform, self-acceptance gives you permission to celebrate what makes you different. It's about recognizing that your quirks, passions, and even your struggles contribute to the tapestry of who you are. When you stop trying to fit into molds that were never designed for you, you begin to live more authentically. And that authenticity becomes a source of strength and inspiration. One of the most transformative aspects of self-acceptance is the way it impacts your relationships. When you accept yourself, you no longer seek validation from others in unhealthy ways. You approach relationships from a place of wholeness rather than expecting someone else to fill the gaps in your self-worth. This creates space for deeper, more genuine connections because you are able to give and receive love without the weight of unrealistic expectations. Self-acceptance also cultivates resilience. Life is full of challenges, and there will inevitably be moments when you fall short or face criticism. But when you have a foundation of self-acceptance, these moments don't define you. You can acknowledge your mistakes without being consumed by them and move forward with the confidence that your worth remains intact. This resilience not only helps you navigate difficulties, but also empowers you to take risks and pursue your dreams, knowing that your value is not contingent on the outcome. The legacy of self-acceptance extends beyond yourself. When you embrace who you are, you give others permission to do the same. Your example becomes a beacon of hope, showing that it's possible to live authentically and unapologetically. This is particularly powerful in a world where so many people struggle with self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy. By embodying self-acceptance, you create a ripple effect, inspiring those around you to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery and acceptance. Self-acceptance also leaves a mark on future generations. When you model self-compassion and authenticity, you teach others, whether they are your children, family members, or community, that it's okay to be human. You show them that their worth is not tied to their accomplishments or how well they fit societal ideals. This legacy can break cycles of self-criticism and perfectionism, creating a culture where people are valued for who they are, not just what they do. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of the legacy of self-acceptance is the peace it brings. When you stop fighting against yourself, you free up energy to focus on what truly matters: your passions, your relationships, and the impact you want to make in the world. Self-acceptance allows you to live with a sense of ease and fulfillment, knowing that you are enough just as you are. This legacy is not something that happens overnight. It is built through daily choices to speak kindly to yourself, to set boundaries that honor your needs, to forgive yourself when you stumble, and to celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Over time, these choices accumulate, creating a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and whole. The legacy of self-acceptance is a gift that keeps giving. It transforms the way you see yourself, the way you show up in the world, and the way you inspire others. It is a reminder that your worth is not something you have to earn, it's something you already possess. By embracing this truth, you create a legacy of courage, compassion, and authenticity that will endure long after you are gone. The legacy of self-acceptance is a profound journey of embracing your inherent worth, flaws, and uniqueness. It begins with challenging the inner critic, letting go of external validation, and cultivating compassion toward yourself. Self-acceptance doesn't mean ignoring areas for growth, but approaching them with grace, allowing you to grow authentically and sustainably. This practice strengthens relationships by fostering genuine connections, grounded in self-respect and mutual understanding. It builds resilience, enabling you to navigate challenges without letting failures define your worth. By living authentically, you inspire others to embrace their true selves, creating a ripple effect of courage and compassion that transcends generations. Ultimately, self-acceptance brings peace, freeing you from self-judgment and empowering you to focus on what truly matters. It's a daily commitment to kindness, authenticity, and self-forgiveness, a legacy that transforms both your life and the lives of those around you, leaving a lasting impact of authenticity and empowerment.